Hey guys, this is John, and welcome to another Climbing the Rating Ladder video. I'm playing Tawny Boy 74942, rated 1830. They opened with knight f3. How shall I respond to this flexible move, which I also play myself oftentimes? I'm going to play knight f6, also flexible in reply. Usually I play d5 because I don't mind transposing to a Slav or some sort of queen's pawn opening. Okay, my opponent plays g3. Why don't we go for like a counter fianchetto? I'll play b6, bishop b7. We'll have our bishops aligned with one another on this long diagonal. Hope you all have been doing well lately. It's a beautiful day here, getting into summer. Let's go c5. Maybe we'll get a hedgehog type position if white decides to go c4 followed by perhaps d4 at some stage, but no, d3. Now, I could go for a double fianchetto. I could also try to occupy the middle of the board, d5. I could play something in between, e6. A lot of flexibility here. The reason why there's flexibility is there's no direct clash between the pieces, right? Yeah, I'm attacking the knight, but that's about the only thing you can say in terms of a clash. There's no pawn tension in particular. So when there's no pawn tension this early, it's going to be more free-flowing. So I'm just going to try to decide on a course of action. I kind of sense white's going to go e4 and take this into more of a closed Sicilian type position. I could play d5 to attempt to, let's say, front run that, but I don't mind playing those closed Sicilian positions. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to play e6, kind of in between. Couldn't make my mind up between this and this. If I play d5, although I would stop e4 for the moment, it's sometimes still possible for white to play it, and I don't want to block my bishop quite yet. So knight bd2. Okay, let's just play bishop e7. Yeah, white being a little cagey with their move order, which makes it interesting. I'll go d6 here. Yeah, now, getting some distinct Sicilian vibes, right? You could say that white has a King's Indian attack structure, and I've kind of been sitting back in Sicilian fashion, pawns on e6, d6, with this pawn on c5. Okay, a4. Now, this looks to maybe nudge the position with pawn a5. So I could play knight c6. I could play a6. That's often a pretty good reaction to this move. I think I'll play a6 so as to meet a5 with b5. It's debatable, actually, if a5 was really a threat there, but I want to just be able to play b5 in reply with the pawn supported. Yeah, and this is conforming to my setup anyways. Some hedgehog crossover here too. Knight c4. Okay, yeah, now the thing is, maybe white is looking to play e5 in some cases. Let's say I go knight bd7 here, which looks exceedingly normal. e5, d takes e5. Let's say knight f takes e5, bishop takes g2, king takes g2. We could get a big old swap, queen d5, queen f3. And I think I'm fine there. The knight won't hang because of queen takes a8. I think I should be fine, but that looks a little bit like it kills kind of the action in the position. So I wonder if maybe I should castle first. Could think about playing b5 here, but I'm thinking castles might be even more flexible. Castles, e5 could still be played, but I feel like I stand a better chance of keeping more pieces on board. I could play e5. Maybe if I castle, white's going to play a5, b5, knight b6. Probably don't really fear that, though. The knight getting in there, I think, would actually be fine. Could white take on d6? Is that a potential option? Interesting. I could also play d5 here. You see, I'm really bouncing around a lot. Again, I don't want to think for too long, but if I'm going to play a break in particular, a pawn move, and trying to anticipate how the pawn action may shake out, I want to be seeing a few moves ahead. Actually, d5 is starting to appeal to me. Maybe one of the more straightforward moves, but take knight e3 somehow still looks a little annoying to play that position. I think I'm just going to castle. I don't think knight takes d6 is anything. I can always take with the bishop, e5, pull the bishop back to here, here. So hate to spend almost 2 minutes on that move and then just play something like castles. but position's fine. Don't foresee any problems. But when you're arranging the bishops opposite one another like this, you got to be vigilant. Okay, and now bishop f4. So this hits the pawn, but it gives me more of a license to play this e5 move if I want, which I think I'm going to avail myself of. Let's go ahead and play it. See where white puts this bishop. I guess I would predict g5. I think white's going to want to leave this open for the knight to come here. So I would predict g5 and possibly white trading on that square. But let's find out. If bishop g5, I can play h6 if I want to force that trade, but also knight c6, knight d7. Both those moves look pretty good. Let's say as a default h6, we get a swap, knight e3. White might try to look into these squares. Okay, bishop back to d2. Yeah, I get this distinct feeling white's going to go for knight e3. But maybe I can simply play g6 against that at a moment's notice. So it's between these two moves here, I'd say. Knight c6 and knight bd7. Knight c6, maybe c3. What kind of track is my knight on there? I think that's okay. Yeah, let's just play knight c6. Notice the queen is holding the b6 pawn, so no issues. This is a 5-second increment game, so 10 plus 5. But yeah, that 2-minute think I had on castles, not ideal. Not ideal. Often you don't want to be subscribing to the John Bartholomew School of Time Management, guys. I try my best. That's why we have using the clock as a weapon as a series. But all right, knight h4, yeah, common type of idea. Trying to work in here. I think I can pretty comfortably play g6 at this point. It slightly weakens my king. Maybe white will come in here, but rook e8. We got to stop knight f5. I do not want that knight making an appearance there. So we'll quickly play these moves. Maybe white will go for f4, but that has some... Yeah, right on cue. That has some implications, especially if I take here. Also, I should be vigilant if ever there's a knight g4 opportunity. Knight h5 is another option, hitting this knight. Taking is my first instinct here. So I'm heavily looking at that. Because if pawn takes, maybe knight takes e4 is working with the discovery. So I kind of like the look of that, folks. And if, let's say, bishop or rook takes, maybe knight h5. Yeah, let's make this capture. I'm not going to spend too much time. I want to try to force white to think and or make a mistake. My gut says this is a good way to play. Because if I don't capture this pawn, white's going to creep forward with f5 or have the option of taking. Not sure how much I like that position. So let's put white to the test here. Looked for a brief moment at e5 if white wants to try to sneak that move in. But I think pawn takes. And there's this idea, knight takes d5, queen d4 with check. I've used that in some Sicilian positions before. Okay, white takes with the rook. So I think this move is critical here. Knight h5 hitting the rook. Got to look at rook takes f7. Nah, I don't buy it. I don't think that'll work for white. As scary as it looks. Would highly, highly doubt it if that works. Queen takes h5. No, I don't think a brilliant C-prize move like that ought to work either. Knight f5, I can take on f4. Yeah, I'm not really seeing the move for white after this. Perhaps white's just going to move the rook back and dare me to take twice on h4 and say that d6 is weak. That could be a thing, but let's go for it. I do think white should pull this rook back here. Well, let's say rook f1. If I do take twice, there is knight takes d6, to be fair. I probably shouldn't allow that. So I could either take once on h4 and then play a move like knight e5. or maybe play knight e5 directly, I'm thinking. White goes rook g4, though. Okay, so white's really doubling down here. Interesting. Certainly that looks like an awkward square for the rook. And I'd love to play knight e5, but white's going to take. Now, knight f5 has to be on my radar. I could play b5. b5 would be interesting, trying to prepare knight e5. I think that's what I'm going to do. 3.5 minutes, so let's not dawdle here. Yeah, there's also bishop c8. I just don't know about knight f5. I'd rather get knight e5 in. And bishop c8 abandons this diagonal. Yeah, I don't think I have to worry about like this capture on g6. I got to be aware of this alignment, but logistically, I don't see how white arranges that. So let's go ahead and play b5. Goal this move, try to land the knight on e5 and really ask white where that rook is going to go. White opens the a file, so that's another element that's been added here to the mix. Yeah, gut instinct, I don't believe this for white. I don't believe this. Then again, I will be fully transparent with you guys. I like to counterattack in chess, and I don't mind curling up in a ball and especially trying to refute my opponent's attacks. If I were a boxer, putting my gloves up like this, maybe being on the ropes and trying to work out of it, I actually like that style of chess. So white does play knight e3, and now knight e5. What's it going to be for white at that point? I'm going to guess white's going to throw a knight in here. White's going to play one of these knights in, and if takes, take with the queen. Kind of just mask those pieces on the king side. But yeah, this rook is looking like it's going to be lost. It's a case where white would like to hop their own rook, right? If they could play queen takes h5, of course, they'd love to do it and use the pin. Notice how this move knight e5, it also allows me to control the d5 square. So the bishop is getting involved defensively in that respect too. Yeah, I'm just getting the feeling that white played rook g4 because it looked like the most consistent attacking move, but I think that was a mistake. I think had white pulled the rook back to f1, maybe f2, although there were some potential alignment issues with their king. But let's say rook f1, I think that would have been quite competitive. I'm not claiming that this is 100% winning yet. This is still going to be complicated, but it does appear like I'm going to go up in exchange, let's say. B3. Okay, can't say I was going to predict that move. But yeah, it looks like white's just going to agree to the exchange sack. So take, queen takes. I could take on h4 at that point, then maybe queen f6. Something simple like that. Kind of looks good. I don't know that this is a situation where I want to be trying for more. Trying to get too fancy with 2.5 minutes left, 2 minutes left. So let's just take. Yeah, I'm thinking take here. Could maybe preserve this bishop. Let's just think take here. Not afraid of queen takes h4. I'd happily trade queens. So pawn takes. f5 doesn't work, unfortunately. So queen f6 probably. Queen f6, maybe queen d7. Okay. Maybe this move has some value in this position. I'm kind of coming around to it. Could offer a queen trade this way if I really want. Knight f6. Yeah, I think I'm going to play. I think I'm going to play bishop f6. Be flexible. Time obviously becoming a big factor here. but I do feel pretty secure. I like that this gives me the option of bishop g7 if I want it. Let's say white plays knight f5, knight e to f5. At minimum, king h8 looks kind of handy, reminding white, hey, like I might take your knight at some point, even if you take mine. Okay, they played that knight to f5. Yeah, maybe just sidestepping now is in order. Just kind of back off. f7's loose at that point, but I don't see any tactics for white. Knight takes d6 is not working. Now, is this a threat? Take f5, white takes h5, I take e4. I would say it looks like a threat. We get a big old trade here. I win a pawn. Okay, so white does go back. Yeah, now maybe I can start improving this bishop, bishop d4. Often threatening f5. I like the look of that. Let's do it. Still being vigilant here. Got to remember I have like a weak pawn on f7. King f2. All right, queen f6. f5 also comes to mind. Queen f6, king e2. Maybe white wants to go in that direction anyways. Ooh, f5 looks kind of nice. Only thing is I don't know if I have time to calculate it. Yeah, you know what I might do? I might actually play this move first. Let's go queen e7. With 22 seconds, I really want to play this move, but I'm not sure about it. So I'm going to play here first. Trying to wind up to f5. Let's not make a committal move with little time on our clock. Okay, now I like the look of this, though. Let's play it. Now, if take here, I think I can take... Yep. Okay, could get kind of interesting, but let's cross that bridge when we get there. This is actually being invited to play. Originally, I only looked at take, queen takes, and then take e4, which I think should be good for me, but maybe knight takes f5 is working. I don't know. Queen f7, knight takes d6. Okay, that should be good because I have queen f2. Okay. I think it should be fine, but maybe not exactly what we want in time pressure. I wish I had more time to work it out. Yeah, here, this is the plan. Is at this moment I'm up a rook for a pawn, so white wants to even up the material. This would make sense. Then I get to take here. Okay, so queen f7. Just stay calm. We got this protected. And here, I think this is going to work. And I should be able to pick up that bishop with check. Got a couple pieces controlling this square. Knight f7 mate I got to be on the watch for, but I think picking up that bishop with check is pretty useful. Okay, time issues for my opponent. Goes back. Okay. Let's play a little anchoring move at this point. Just guard some stuff. G4, maybe knight G7. I like to look for stabilizing moves in time pressure. I think it's super important. Okay, goes there. Oh, 0.1? Wait a second. I thought this was increment. Oh, this is no increment. No increment. I better pre-move. I'm going to lose, though, with 0.1. I think it's unrated, but that was funny because I legit thought there was increment. Yeah, it was unrated. This is too funny. All right, well, that'll make for a funny conclusion. Thanks to those of you who continued to watch here. Yeah, I think the reason I thought there was increment. So when I look to play these games, I just look at the open challenges, and the one I was going to click on right before this was 10+5, and uh, I clicked on it, but it didn't pair me. I think the opponent got paired. So when I clicked on this one mentally, I thought there was increment. Who has that not happened to? All right. Well, looks like the position. Wow, it actually was pretty complicated at the end. Bishop f3. Bishop f3 in this position. Not a move I considered. Yeah, I think this position and the f5 decision in particular was riskier than I gave it credit for. Yeah, in hindsight, I would not have gone for this. F5 in this position. We'll look at the game review in a second. As far as big picture things in the opening, yeah, kind of a flexible, interesting opening for both sides. Bishop f4, e5. I do think f4. I'll be curious about the evaluation of f4. I think that was a slight mistake, but then again, had white moved the rook back to one of these squares, like I was mentioning, it's probably okay for white. It's probably all right. Yeah, and here, I think some more patience needed for me, especially in like this phase of the game. Queen e7 was kind of a patient move, but f5, that's if I were to single out one move I'd really like to have back in this game, it would be that. Trying to think of anything else I want to mention. We'll look at maybe what the book says right around here. We did get into a King's Indian attack in, at least from White's perspective, like a classic King's Indian attack position in a interesting way via this move order where I was offering to go into a hedgehog type position if White ever wanted to play c4. I think probably occupying the center fully with d5 would be technically a little bit better, but I kind of like these positions where you're crouching behind your pawns. So that's why I decided to go for that. But yeah, I'll be very curious about the evaluation right around here with f4. Let's take a look. See what the game review says. 78.8 for my opponent, 87.5 for me. All right. Yeah, so with knight f3 on move 1, I think when you're responding to this as black, you should carefully consider what you play against d4, because that could determine what type of setup you want to adopt against knight f3. Okay, so if you're, for example, a King's Indian player, you can pretty comfortably play knight f6, g6, bishop g7, and you don't mind if white plays d4, c4 at some point, right? Let's say they even go for a fianchetto. If white ever ducks back into this, hey, I mean, you're in King's Indian, Pearts type territory. Well, more so King's Indian, especially if white commits to c4. So you don't mind that. There are some d4 lines that are sort of impervious to getting move ordered and more flexible in that regard than other d4 openings, defenses to d4. So I, as like a Slav player, semi-Slav player, I like playing d5 against knight f3. And sometimes white tries to avoid or completely forego d4, but a lot of times they do play it, and you're back into Slav territory if c4 is ever followed up with, or just general d4, d5 territory. I would say knight f3 is especially useful against Nimzo Indian players. It's not easy to get into a Nimzo Indian. For example, if you play a move order like this, white may just avoid playing d4. You can get something similar, but a lot of Kramnik games from the 1990s kind of showed that this is probably more pleasant for white than a normal normal Nimzo Indian. So stuff like Nimzo, Queen's Indian, Benoni, Benko, those are hard openings to get into via knight f3 if you're trying to angle for it as black. The Dutch can be tried. If you're a Dutch player, you can think about playing f5 for sure, or e6 and then f5 if you so choose. I definitely, forgetting some other ones. Grunfeld can sometimes get move ordered. So if you try to enter a Grunfeld like this move order, it's just a little bit different than normal. There's theory here. MVL has played this many times from the black side, but White hasn't committed to D4, so it's just a little bit different. So be advised. You can also just play independently. If you don't want to think at all about what you play against D4 and your opponent has opened with knight F3, totally okay. I would say C5 is a pretty darn good option, as I somewhat played in this game, even though I played knight F6 first. So if you're a Sicilian player, that would especially be apt. So there's even an E4 transposition, knight F3, C5, E4, and we're back into Sicilian. But this is a pretty good standalone defense. Just want to have something in mind if White goes G3. So in this game, I played knight F6, and then B6, kind of counter fianchettoing. A lot of times White does play C4, and then goes for E6. Let's just check the opening book here for a minute. Yeah, so C4 is the top move here. But the position's so flexible, we can't even say that C4 is clearly better than other options. So my opponent played the second most popular move here, D3. Yeah, and I was debating knight C6, E6, G6. Looks like all these moves are, I think I said D5 as well. All these moves are playable. Yeah, D6, E6, G6. Yeah, head White on E4. I could decide if I want to play D6 or D5. If we go D5, I would be inviting something like this, potentially. There's a lot of king's Indian attack positions where the struggle will revolve around White trying to defend this pawn in the center. But I probably would have played D6, just played it a little more flexibly. A lot of games from here, as you can see. But okay, knight BD2. Yeah, I played bishop E7, D5. Looks like it's played more often. I just kind of wanted to keep this diagonal open. Yeah, A4. Here I played A6. Just throw the engine on and see. Kind of getting into territory where maybe the engine can be useful. It's giving virtual equality here. Yeah, it doesn't change it too much. Castle. Didn't want to overreact to this knight jumping here. Could play knight BD7. Thought maybe White might play E5 and try to trade stuff off. Here first. Notice that if I play queen D5 at the end, White can play queen F3. So if I take the knight, the rook gets lost. I think I mentioned that line. So that's on my radar. Again, if you're going to fianchetto your bishop opposite the opponent's bishop, just be advised of that. So castle, bishop F4. Are we still following any games here? No games. Okay. Yeah, interesting. I went ahead and played E5, but there are other moves. Knight C6, knight H5 to bother the bishop, D5. All these are roughly equal. The engine ever so slightly dings the move E5, so it counts that against me just a little bit. And it probably is because the engine doesn't see a need to weaken these two squares. I guess I was expecting this. I probably would have played here or H6 directly. But okay, White plays bishop D2. Knight comes here. Yep, G6. Rook E8. And here's an important moment where White goes F4. Okay, so it's not the top move for White. It wants to continue maneuvering here, knight E3, which makes sense. This kind of reminds me of a Ruy Lopez position in a way, too. Some lines of the Ruy that look really similar to this. And I do have to watch these squares constantly. But yeah, F4 takes. White takes with the rook. Knight H5. Okay, and here, rook F1 or the surprising rook F5 are the best moves. Yeah, rook F1. To me in the game, that's what seemed like the best move because if I take twice on H4, I think I mentioned this, White can take on D6 at the end. I don't think I want to get involved with this. The position's opening up. White has the two bishops. This knight is annoying, hitting a lot of stuff, also linking up with the rook on F7. So not the best. So I think what I would have done against rook f1, I would have thought about knight e5 for sure, or I might have taken once and then played something like knight e5. What if I play this right away? Take, queen f3. And the engine's giving somewhat sizable advantage for white. f6, and then knight f5. Interesting. Yeah, so I think that probably was all right. So f4 may be okay, even taken with the rook. This is also possible, but this is okay. But it looks like white has to follow up accurately. White went here instead, and b5 is the best move. Yeah, so I want to go after this rook now. Wasn't keen to play a move like this, though, not directly, because there's complications, and I didn't like creating an undefended piece here, just in case white ever plays e5 or something. So I was pretty happy with b5. Didn't think white should actually open this file. I thought maybe white should go here directly. But white does do this. Yep, knight e5. And this rook is toast at this point, suggesting knight h to f5. And I could take right away or even save the bishop first. Interesting, because even this is covered. Yeah. So that was a turning point in this game. And let's see from here. Yep, bishop f6 is good. King h8 seemed useful. Bishop c6, that kind of crossed my mind too. Maybe to come back here. But I think on the whole, I'm pretty happy about this. d5. Huh. d5, and if pawn takes, then bishop d4. Okay, so this is also good, apparently. Because I even have stuff like knight f6 coming back, attacking d5. Yeah, and here f5 seemed premature, although not for the reason I thought. I thought takes was unclear, but maybe not. Knight f6 is apparently good. Allows this move. Take, hit the knight. My king is open. I can't go here because I get mated. Yeah. So I played queen e7. Just seemed like a nice stabilizing move. Does still look pretty good. King e2. Yeah, and f5 I think was just premature. And white reacted correctly. Knight h takes f5. White played king e2, stepping out of this. They do step into this, though, and that's what encouraged me to play this. But in hindsight, I don't know why d5 wasn't on my radar. f5 was, but maybe d5, the fact that the bishop was blocked here in my head, maybe that's why I didn't think about it. But as soon as I played this move and saw, this is getting kind of murky if specifically this happens, I started to regret it a little bit. Huh. And the engine claims that I should not even take the knight in this position. And queen f7 was accurate because if takes here, I have this one. And I was mentioning I can go pick up the bishop with check. This bishop does a great job of controlling the enemy king, too. So this should be winning. Just got to make sure I don't get mated with knight f7. But yeah, this move, bishop f3, very interesting. Bishop f3, and the game is dead even. Don't you just love engines? It's dead even. So if I retreat the knight, now white can take here because there's no queen f2. Interesting. And if something like this, it is a minor piece against 3 pawns for white. Somehow just equal, according to the engine, even though there's lots of pieces on board. Fascinating. There's other moves here as well, but apparently white's holding in all of them. Instead, the white went here, and this is where, well, especially on this move, I noticed my time was not increasing. But kudos to my opponent for playing an interesting game and getting the victory. Yeah, that was fun. Okay, so we played flexibly in the opening. I did kind of entice my opponent to do something drastic on the king side. I do think f4 and white's play after knight h5 in particular was a little rushed. They could play rook f1 here. So just make sure if you make a break like that, that you're thinking about the implications. This is a common break when black has played e5, but you got to look at the counterattacking potential in these types of setups. You know, I'd say broadly from this game, this was a fairly high-level game in terms of the opening and middle game, very flexible. If you take away one thing out of the opening, It's that against knight f3, think about what you do as black against d4. Maybe do a little research. Is it playable against knight f3? Because that can save you a lot of time if you want to angle for a similar setup. Or if you're like a Benko Gambit player, Benoni or something, Grunfeld, are you more likely to get move ordered? And maybe you should think about playing something independent. Also, if you're not a d4, d5 player, you might not want to play d5 here, right? Because if white goes d4, you're suddenly playing a queen's pawn opening. So just give that some thought. All right, thanks to Tani Boy. I'll try to remember that there's increment next time. That'll make for an interesting title or description or something. Giving you guys heart attacks out there. Appreciate you guys all watching. Let me know if you have any comments. See you guys.